I've been out for a few days.
Okay.
And I tried calling him.
Okay.
No answers. They tried calling him. No answer. They couldn't get away at work today. And I'm coming out now because I'm off work. And he can't get out the door. And when I look, everything's black. Like, guys, I want to go in and
Look, okay. Nikki, calm down for me, okay? Nikki.
On Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019, the snow-swept town of Bismarck, North Dakota, had their New Year's excitement cut short.
When was the last time you had contact with Chad?
Monday.
Monday? Okay.
Yeah.
Was it? Did you have contact with him at this address?
Oh, we talked on the phone.
On the phone? Okay.
At 5 p.m., Nikki Ensel placed this distressed 911 call from outside her home. She had arrived at her house after a long stay out of town, only to find that a fire raged inside and that her husband, Chad Ensel, had been trapped in the blaze. The fire department found Chad dead in the master bedroom, surrounded by a tank of propane gas, bottles of alcohol, and a double-barrel shotgun.
Nikki, but that's what I want to find out. So why would that happen to Chad?
Like any devastated wife, Nikki sought answers and asked the police to investigate.
Nikki, but why were you so dishonest with me about this? I trusted you.
Nikki would soon realize that the one person she thought law enforcement would never blame was the one they eventually would suspect the most.
I'm going to say that Chad's death was not an accident.
What?
In 2016, Nikki Sue met Chad Ensel at a racing event. By the time Nikki and Chad met, Nikki had amassed 3 separate criminal convictions. In fact, Nikki and Chad married the same year they met in 2016, while Nikki was still on probation, and she and her 2 children moved into Chad's house in Bismarck, where they began their new life as a family. Things seemed so good, in fact, that in 2019, Chad took out a life insurance policy worth $600,000 with Nikki Sue as the sole beneficiary. In 2019, Nikki began an affair with Earl Howard. As time went on, the pair spent more and more time together, even staying in hotel rooms in Bismarck. And when the pair knew Chad wouldn't be home on this fateful night, they decided it was the perfect time to pounce. On the evening of December 30th, Chad Ensel left his home to go bowling, one of his regular hobbies. The CCTV capture of him walking into the bowling alley is the last known video footage we have of Chad still alive. Taking advantage of Chad being out, Nikki and Earl removed several items from Nikki and Chad's home. Together, Nikki and Earl brought all their stuff back to the hotel room where they were staying, and CCTV footage captured them taking multiple trips into and out of Staybridge Suites. Chad arrived back home sometime before 1:11 a.m. Between then and 2:56 a.m., Chad's life would be taken. But how? On January 2nd, Chad's co-workers became concerned that he wasn't showing up for work. They decided to make a trip to Chad's home to check on him. They received no response when they knocked on the door, despite seeing Chad's car in the driveway. Having failed to contact Chad, his co-workers called the police, requesting that they perform a welfare check on him. The police also made their way to the property and received no response when they knocked on the door. At 5 p.m., Nikki returned from work and parked in the driveway of her and Chad's home. When she went inside, she was stunned that smoke had filled their house. She called 911.
I've been out for a few days.
Okay.
And I tried calling him.
Okay.
No answers.
The fire department arrived on the scene. They found significant fire damage in the home, but no active fires. They found Chad's body in the bedroom, along with a shotgun, a propane tank, and bottles of whiskey. Fire marshals initially concluded that Chad's death might have been an alcohol-induced accidental suicide. However, a little more searching revealed a very different story. After examining the rest of the house, the fire department concluded that 2 separate fires had been started in the home, one on the furnace and one in the bedroom. Interestingly enough, fire marshals also found traces of fire accelerant on both the furnace and the bedroom. Interesting, but when the police arrived on the scene, the list of inconsistencies only grew. They noticed that shotgun pellets were lodged in the bedroom wall at an angle that was not consistent with Chad having shot himself. By this point, the police had strong suspicions that foul play was involved in Chad Ensel's death. On January 8th, Nikki was interviewed by 2 Bismarck police officers, initially as a potential witness or source of further information. However, as you will soon see, the officers suspect Nikki might know more than she let on, and the footage from Nikki's interrogation reveals painstaking efforts by police to unravel the tangled web of lies and false evidence that Nikki had woven around them.
That's enough. You don't have to be like that about it. I just can get through this and get it done. Like I said, I cleared my schedule. I might have to jump out to take a phone call here now and then, just because I can't completely hide away. Once again, I apologize so much. I couldn't get back to you. Like I said, I was in court. It just, judge doesn't let me take phone calls or anything, so.
In most police interrogations conducted in the United States, officers begin with the immediate application of the Reid technique. The Reid method is very effective, as it is meant breaks down the interviewee's barriers and resistance to being questioned, eventually leading to a confession from the guilty party. However, this method is critiqued precisely because it is so good at extracting confessions, which later may turn out to be false. In Mickey's case, the inspector began with an approach similar to the Peace method, which was much more friendly, open, and encouraged Nikki to tell her entire version of the story with minimal interruption.
I'm sorry, I just needed.
No, and Nikki, you don't have to apologize for that.
From the start of the interrogation footage, Nikki also has a clear approach. She tries to play on the inspector's friendliness, getting him to view her as vulnerable, fragile, and likable.
First off, how did you guys meet?
Through racing?
Through racing?
Yeah.
Okay. Like how?
I just kind of took off from there, from West Racing. And
So you raced too now?
I was in racing up and we took off from there, and I lived in Van, so we traveled back and forth, and we only got to see each other like twice a month because of my job and his job. So.
Were you guys dating then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A year and a half, almost 2 years of dating. We got engaged.
Love was in the air, huh?
Mm-hmm. And
How long were you guys engaged for?
a year.
A year?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big transition. I know, I've been through that. It's a transition.
I started drinking more. I started calling and drinking. Please.
So he was just a different person when he drank.
It's completely different, like night and day when you were drinking and when you drank.
When did you start to notice his drinking increase? Like when in the relationship?
Throughout the interrogation, Nikki fidgets with her hands in the sleeves of her jacket. Her fidgeting and hand movements become worse as she speaks to the inspector about her husband Chad's drinking. To body language experts, hand movements are an important cue in determining someone's emotional state. In Nikki's case, her extreme hand fidgeting could indicate that she is tense, anxious, or even hiding parts of the truth.
I wanted to leave.
When was that?
2 years.
2 years ago? So that's when this kind of started? When you started noticing it, I guess?
Well, he's always drank our entire relationship.
Right. But when you said it, you said you saw it increase.
We had about 2 years.
Okay. So that's 2 years ago, so what, 2018?
17.
Okay.
Whatever you found on.
What do you grab?
There is also a clear mismatch between Nikki's shy, mumbling speaking tone and her body language. She does not hesitate to forcefully grab the inspector's arm to demonstrate Chad's alleged abuse. This lack of synchronization between her verbal and physical persona would have instantly revealed to the inspector that a much stronger personality was being concealed behind the demure persona Nikki was performing.
I have to be able to be best for the boys and like what we could get by with. And
So was there a time that you were like, I think I'm gonna, try for this? I know you said you had gotten new phones.
the process of it.
Yeah.
All the ice storm weather.
Right.
Haven't helped anything.
Show up, yeah. No,
The Christmas gifts haven't even all the way came yet.
Oh, you Amazon.
Christmas gifts haven't even all the way came yet because of the bad weather. Like, we haven't even had Christmas. We didn't have Christmas, yeah.
As the interrogation progresses, Nikki's mood is wildly inconsistent. Periodically, her shy, quiet demeanor falls away and she quickly shifts into an upbeat, louder toner. She even occasionally laughs along with the police officer, only to return to mumbling and crying within the same sentence. This once again demonstrates a lack of synchronization that betrays to the police officer that the emotions Nikki displays on the surface may not be entirely trustworthy.
It's gonna be okay.
The inspector notices that his friendly, open-ended approach is not leading Nikki to talk about the events of Chad's death. He uses a very effective body language trick to pressure her into opening up. By closing the physical distance between them and leaning in closer to Nikki, the inspector conveys his strength and dominance over the conversation. This added sense of threat should encourage Nikki to start telling the truth.
Are you doing okay there for finances and stuff and everything like that?
Yeah. But why?
However, it does not seem to work on her. Instead, Nikki reaches in to touch the inspector's hand in an attempt to create a deeper sense of fragility, intimacy, and vulnerability.
You're doing okay though as far as finances and stuff for the hotel and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been renting that hotel?
Wednesday. Oh, the insurance is paying now since the 3rd.
Oh, the insurance is paying it. Did you pay for the room before that?
Yeah, just a couple days.
So you just put that on like your credit card or something, or did you? Yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to know.
Do you need anything to drink?
No.
Okay. Did you see anything when you went back, to the house, anything weird or anything like that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't think when you took me out there very well. Like, I played out those videos, but
You pointed out this way.
there's like this, a few things I didn't belong where they belong.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. Yeah.
Nikki begins actively using deflection methods to distract the inspector from important moments in Nikki's story. We can see a particularly extreme example of this when Nikki suddenly bursts into louder and more intense crying than before, just after the inspector implies that she might have seen something strange on the night Chad died. By applying this trick, Nikki attempts to force the inspector to change the subject. Instead, the inspector should have noticed that louder crying is one of Nikki's hotspot cues. In criminal psychology, hotspots are behavior patterns that flag up when an important or stressful topic are being discussed. Nikki's crying deflection here quickly pushes the interrogation forward, forcing the inspector to use a different technique, which, as you will soon see, eventually cost Nikki her innocent facade.
We know how this happened. And Nikki, I think you know how too.
I know. That's why I asked you. Nothing.
One of the crucial moments in Nikki's interrogation is the inspector's shift from a version of the peace method to using the Reed technique. The first step in using the Reed method is to directly present incriminating evidence to the suspect, encouraging them to confess.
Chad did not die in the fire. Okay?
Okay.
Chad was killed by a gunshot.
What?
Yep, he was killed by a firearm. We did an autopsy on Chad, and there was no soot in his lungs or in his throat. And that tells us that Chad was dead before the fire started.
In this case, the inspector candidly tells Nikki that Chad did not die in the fire but was shot instead. Her lukewarm response betrays far less surprise than she may have intended and suggests she is already well aware of the circumstances Chad died in.
Nikki, this is Joe Aarons.
Hi.
He's with Bureau of Criminal Investigations.
Yeah.
Hello.
However, because Nikki still isn't coming clean, a second inspector joins the interrogation to support the application of the Reed technique.
And
I have to go soon.
When the second inspector walks in, Nikki's first response is to state that she has to leave soon. Within less than 3 seconds, Nikki had immediately revealed to both inspectors that the turn of the interrogation had made her extremely skittish and defensive. To the inspectors, this would have been an important red flag as it became clear they were reaching a potential breaking point.
I wanted to come in and we knew that, so we wanted to get me in here as soon as we could. Then, sorry, I had some other things going on too, so I missed a lot of apparently what you've been talking to him for a while now. Okay, so I guess at this point, I've reviewed everything. The biggest thing you need to be doing right now is you gotta be honest about everything. We have a lot of information. I was at the crime scene. I know you've been talking to him and told him some things. Some of that I can tell you right now is not true. Then explain to me why at 6:32 there was someone back out there. You guys were back out there. And don't claim you don't know. You know, I think that you feel bad about what happened. Here, look at me though. You feel bad about what happened, don't you?
Oh, what?
What's happened to Chad at this point?
I have nothing to do with what happened to Chad.
All right. Here's the deal on this. The longer time goes on, what you do know, it's not going to get any easier. It's going to keep building up and building up on you. You're not going to later on feel better about this. The only way you're going to have any closure to this at all is for you to be honest with us. And since I've been in here, you haven't been honest to me at all.
The second inspector is far more aggressive than the first, proceeding with the Reed technique and reaching a point where he explicitly and repeatedly accuses Nikki of lying, pushing her into longer silences and shorter answers as she tries to piece together a new version of events that makes sense in the face of evidence against her.
I don't know what happened to him. I don't. That's why I asked you guys. I don't know.
But then why do you keep lying to me?
I don't know what happened to him. I don't.
One of the core elements in the application of the Reed method is the development of a theme to present to the suspect and see whether or not their responses confirm it. From the get-go, the second inspector's implicit theme is that Nikki killed Chad, or at least knows who did. Unbeknownst to her, Nikki's rapidly changing narrative is only feeding right into the inspector's theme building.
What's your relationship with Earl?
We know each other. Like I said, he first bought cookies, and from there when he came into the area, I've went and catered or cooked for him before, and we've more so developed a joking relationship. He's hung out with my kids. I've met his daughter.
Have you met his wife? You said he was married,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
No, I've not met his wife. No.
Okay.
No.
And Chad knows Earl?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they friends?
They've met. They've hung out. They've, so he's came over and...
One of the topics the second inspector covers in detail is the nature of Nikki's relationship with Earl. Nikki's description of her relationship with Earl only confirms police suspicions that she's omitting important facts to the case. She tells the second inspector that Earl is just a friend, and that he and Chad know each other and have hung out.
So Chad knows Earl?
Mm-hmm.
They get along?
Yeah.
Okay. And so then I understand you were staying at the Staybridge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you were staying with Earl?
He had already had a room there, and I told him, I said, I was upset Monday, and I said, I just need some time. The furnace isn't working. It's a forever ending thing. I said, I told Chad, I said, I can't keep doing no furnace working. I don't want to be here. I said, it's been out pretty much since.
What did Chad think of you going and staying in a hotel room with Earl? Chad didn't think anything of that? Really?
No.
I'm a married man myself. He's married. That would not fly with... I don't know any guy that would fly with that.
I guess I
Would
don't.
go stay... What would you have done if Chad had went and stayed with Earl's wife in a hotel room while you stayed home? Come on. Let's
It's
be
not fair.
realistic here. So, do you and Earl... It's more than just a friendship. I mean, there's definitely a romantic relationship there, right?
In response, the officer attempts to get Nikki to admit to her romantic involvement with Earl by highlighting how implausible it seems for Chad to have been fine with Nikki staying at a hotel room alone with Earl.
I want to hear step
What
by step
happened?
what happened when you and Earl were out there for an hour and 40
We went
minutes.
out to the house. We got there. He was drinking. Him and Earl talked.
And where were that when they were talking?
Chad was in his couch,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it, his couch area. And he was drinking. Earl said hi, they talked about whatever. And I told him, I said, I'm not staying here if the furnace doesn't work. It's not happening. I can't do it. The kids can't do it. It's not fair to us. I said, I want nothing more than to be the place that has heat. It's freezing outside, everything else. Me and him were arguing. And finally I just said, that's it. Done. I'm leaving. I left.
And where was Earl during this?
His boots on to come out.
Huh?
His boots on to come out of the house.
Okay. Was he actually, or was he still in the house while you were out there?
I was out when he was putting boots on.
Okay. And where was he putting boots on at?
Right in the entryway thing right there.
Okay.
I said, please run out with me. I said, I just want to check all my bags.
And where was Chad when you went out there?
I snuck in the house.
Okay, but where was Chad?
When the house was dark. I'm sure you're still sleeping.
Okay.
I
And did Earl come in then too?
don't think Carol came in the house.
Think about that for a minute.
The second inspector's application of the Reed method is very effective, causing Nikki to crack and recount an entirely different version of events than the one she had initially presented to the first inspector. This is a major win for the police, as they now have recorded evidence that Nikki was at least partially lying during her first account.
And where'd you go?
Back to the hotel. Because I was trying to take my work. I need my patches. I have high blood pressure.
Yeah.
And if I don't have my patches on, I'll get even sicker.
What did you and Earl do from the time you got back to the hotel room the first time after being out there at your house? Or not the first time, I suppose it would be the second time, when you guys were out there for about an hour and 40 minutes, and then you went back to the hotel. What did you guys do?
I went to drink my meds. My meds were important to me.
So then tell me why, before you guys went out there that time to get your meds, why did you feel the need to go and try to tamper with the camera system?
I don't.
You logged on at 12:43 a.m. and were attempting to put the camera in like a privacy mode, which just didn't work. And then you showed up out there 15 minutes later.
Anybody can log into my cameras that have my stuff. They don't just have to be whatever. I mean.
But it wasn't just anyone, it was you.
I've opened my
wasn't just
cameras.
anyone.
I've opened my cameras before and it's been open and I've not known it's been open before. I don't do, here's the other thing. If I go near my home with my watch and all that, my geofence goes off.
Right.
So.
But so why were you in there trying to switch the camera on?
I wasn't. I said
It was you. We know it was you.
If I was in it, I have my hand on the button and I'm not paying attention. I don't go in and dink around with the system a whole lot. I know I went into it the other day and tried to update my geofence from where we lived to where we're living now. And it wouldn't work. It kept defaulting back to other stuff. And I've tried to go in and change my stuff before. Because when I go to school or pick 2 days from school, it beeps at me. You know, I said, I gotta change it. We don't even live there.
Just over an hour into the interrogation, Nikki finally begins telling the inspector about the days leading up to Chad's death. This is where her lying begins to clash with the evidence that Bismarck law enforcement already knows about but is deliberately holding back from Nikki. Nikki explicitly states that she and Earl went to the house she shared with Chad while he was out bowling on the night he died. Aside from this, she makes no reference to having gone back to the house at any other point that day. In fact, the police already knew that Nikki had returned to the house sometime between 1:11 and 2:56 a.m., as Nikki had attempted to set her home security system to privacy mode, which turned off CCTV cameras, but left door sensors on.
All right, so let's just recap a little bit. So you guys went out there about 1:10 a.m. Or let's go back. So first, you go on the cameras, you try to put them in privacy mode, but it doesn't work. Then you show up.
I tried to update my geofence.
Okay, then you show up at 1:10, and you're there for an hour and 40 minutes. You leave around 3 o'clock, 2:56 to be exact. All right. 6:32, you show up back out at the house. You want to know. 6:38, you and Earl leave. Activity throughout the day. Then, at about 10:55 that evening, then you guys are back out at the house again.
I don't remember being back at the house.
Or was Earl back out at the house without you?
I don't remember being back at the house.
Alright, so was Earl at the house without you? Possible?
Possible. I don't remember being at the
Mhm.
house.
So Earl went out there by himself. What would Earl have went back out to that house by himself? And why would Earl have went back out to that house by himself without telling you?
I don't know. I always been back out at the house.
So Earl was back out at the house. So why was Earl back out at the house? Come on, he would have told you.
I don't know.
Earl was not going to leave and go out to your house and not mention it to you.
I don't
So
know
what did Earl tell
I don't know
you?
what he would have ran to the house for.
What did Earl tell you?
He was going out and check and see if Chad was home.
Okay. So he did tell you.
Because I wanted to get some more stuff out.
Okay, so why didn't you go with him? I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you in any way. But people who lie to me, I feel that's being disrespectful to me. If you want me to treat you with that respect, you're going to start treating me with that respect. And your continuous lying isn't working. And I think overall, you are a decent person. I think you're a good person. You've raised 2 sons.
I don't
You have a good job.
The second inspector follows on with another phase in the Reed method, which is to try to defend the suspect's moral integrity, making them feel supported and encouraging them to confess. In this case, the inspector reassures Nikki that despite her consistent lying, he still thinks she's a good person.
I was planning on leaving.
Yes. And where were you going?
I was planning on moving away
To where?
to Texas.
Okay. Where at in Texas?
I was at Austin.
Okay. Did you have a job down there?
Potentially, yes. I've done
Something in the
interviews.
works?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna
All
get
right.
involved.
You have job interviews or you did?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I've had a couple over the phone.
Okay. So when was that supposed to happen?
The 13th.
13? Okay. And just, you're moving to Texas?
Invoice.
Okay. Nobody else?
No.
Okay. So Earl wasn't moving to Texas with you?
No.
Was there any talk of Earl moving to Texas with you? Nothing at all. So there's no text messages to a realtor or anything like that.
He would eventually like to move home. He's
Right.
from there, but
That's not what I'm talking about, what Earl's plans are later on in life. So there's no text messages regarding you and Earl looking at houses down there.
please come out look at him with me. Yeah, I mean, I want someone to help me look at a house. I don't want to do it alone. I mean, I want someone to help me.
Mm-hmm. Did Chad know you were leaving?
I told him before I was going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So let's again go back through some of this again, because a lot of it's still not making sense to me, and honestly, the reason some of it's not making sense is because you keep lying to me. Almost everything I've asked you about the events, you've lied about.
Okay, I mean, I thought you were honest with me. I thought that's what we were doing here. I mean, I've trusted you this whole time.
I'll be right back.
And,
I don't know what happened.
okay, but Nikki, why were you so dishonest with me about this? I trusted you.
Potentially, Brandon, I forgot about bringing back out there. Do you know how full my brain is?
I know, but I asked you those things. I asked you that. You weren't honest with me. Why?
I forgot about the times we went back out there. I said, I don't
That's a
remember all
big
the
thing,
times we
Nikki.
went
That's
back out there.
that's not forgetting. That's lying to me. You lied to me.
I'm sorry.
And we know that Chad was killed. You've got to tell us an
I
explanation
don't
for
know
it.
what happened. Honestly, Aaron, I don't.
Something more happened that night.
We got in the vehicle.
Nikki, that's not true. We know that off the information that we've gathered. We have all kinds of things. Like I said, You've got to stop telling lies. Tell me what went down that night.
Okay.
He told you, Nikki. He told you what happened in there. Now's your time to tell us.
Because
They argue.
you know what? Earl would not have let you go back into that house and not have told you.
No.
Because what if you went to the back bedroom, went back to the master bedroom, and Earl's just standing in the kitchen going, huh? No.
The final phase of Nikki Ensel's interrogation is much shorter than the rest. After an effective use of the Reed method by the inspectors, they begin to act as a team, putting pressure on Nikki at the same time and pushing her to answer their questions. As you will soon see, this is the approach that eventually causes Nikki to crack entirely.
They argued.
And then what? They argued and then what?
In our bedroom.
Okay.
So it was Earl and Chad, not this mystery guy.
Then what?
I went out into the car. And I waited.
Okay.
And nothing went so let's go now.
Why?
You asked what happened.
This is what happened.
And what did Earl say?
My life.
Earl said he's not alive. And then
He
what?
wasn't. Or he might not be alive. I don't know for sure. This is what.
After a 3-hour-long interrogation, Nikki finally breaks. She tells the officers an entirely different version of events than the one she had laid out initially. Nikki plainly states that Earl was the one who shot Chad, and then exited the house to tell her that Chad was not alive.
He came back to start that fire. Who planned that part? Was that you or was that Earl? You didn't plan to come and set the house on fire.
No.
Earl did. Chad is dead and you know that. Why would you still call him then? Whose idea was that?
I'm scared. And so they put us in my head.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you weren't trying to take time to figure anything out?
No. As a victim, I'm scared.
What about then on the second when his co-workers are out at the house and they call you and say, hey, he didn't show up for work, and you just basically tell him, I'm busy at work right now, I'll check on it later. What was going through your mind at that point? Because you knew exactly why Chad wasn't.
I'd have been really fucking bad at my thing. Already.
Why did you talk with Earl when they started calling from work?
No, because I've been crazy busy.
Nikki,
And then I
your
told
husband
him,
just died in a really weird, crazy circumstance that just snowballed out of control. You can't tell me that you weren't thinking of that. That had to be every second of your life from the time it happened.
As Nikki continues her story, the lies she's telling only become clearer. In the 911 call she placed on January 2nd, Nikki mentioned not having seen or heard from Chad since Monday. However, the welfare check request placed by Chad's coworkers to the police on January 2nd tells a different story.
I'm calling to see if you guys could do a welfare check on one of our employees.
Sure.
His wife called in sick for work on Tuesday, and we haven't heard from him since.
This welfare check call is a key piece of evidence for law enforcement. Based on the evidence they have in Nikki's account so far, they can determine that Nikki returned to her and Chad's home between 1:11 and 2:56 a.m. on December 31st, and that she is deliberately leaving out key information, highlighting her potential involvement in Chad's death.
What did Earl say to do? What did you guys talk about? What did you guys think to do? This is that part where I'm trying to
I
understand.
said to myself, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I said, Sergeant Anna, there's some things to me. I said, and everybody was being so mean to me about my phone and everything.
Yeah.
And I said, I just want to understand. I said, he's so nice to me. I said, I just want to go talk to him.
Right.
And every time I tried calling you, you never called me back. And I called so many times. I called. I wanted to talk to you earlier.
And Nikki, that's why we're talking now.
And I called.
Okay, and that's why we're talking now, okay?
And I called. And
We can get past that point, okay?
Maybe
That's your conscience telling you to do the right thing, okay? That's the mother in you of 2 children telling you, you have to take care of them, you have to come forward, you have to tell them. So tell me what those conversations were so I can understand and I can make sense of this. And like I said, if this is something that's snowballed out of control, like you said, that can make sense, right? But I can't keep dragging these answers out of you. I can't keep dragging what happened. I can't ask for the truth any harder.
I kept telling Earl, I said, I just want to talk to him. I said, I just want to talk to him. And he goes, call him then. And I said, I do. And he never answers my phone and calls. And I said, I don't understand. You never call me back. And I called really like the next day already. And I called. And I
came out with you the Nikki. We're talking now, so that's okay. I apologize, I'm sorry, but we're talking now.
Nikki, we're not questioning why you're only telling us this now.
Right, we understand.
This I understand.
This is understandable, that.
I said, I just don't understand. I said, it's crazy. I said, it went so fast. I said, I can't even think. It's just nuts. I said, it went from...
Finally, the inspectors succeed in getting Nikki to write a formal confession. However, her last recorded action during the interrogation incriminated her even more.
Enough. You don't have to be like that about it.
Nikki was seen attempting to rip up a part of her written confession, and the first inspector has no choice but to forcibly confiscate the document from her. Nikki's interview strategy made for a long, winding interrogation, but ultimately did not work in her favor. She quickly came face to face with the reality that the police had bought her act from the start. The evidence stacked against her was simply too great. Though the first inspector had initially given her the benefit of the doubt, Nikki was so distracted by acting out her false, shy persona that she failed to consider the possibility that the inspector might have already suspected her. By lying and omitting incriminating details, Nikki only laid the ground for her eventual conviction and wasted her time trying to present a fragile, vulnerable facade to an already skeptical officer. On top of that, Nikki's behavior and body language during the interrogation betrayed her. Her reactions were extreme, mismatched, and seemed tone-deaf considering the recent death of her husband. She swung wildly from extreme crying to laughter. She spoke extremely softly and quietly, yet made swift, abrupt movements, grabbing police officers to demonstrate her fabricated versions of events and even attempting to destroy evidence. After Nikki's interrogation, a warrant was issued for Earl's arrest. Both Nikki and Earl were tried in 2022. Nikki's final confession and trial evidence would reveal that Nikki and Earl had planned Chad's murder together. In fact, the chain of events that would lead to Chad's death on December 31st began 5 days prior. On December 26th, Nikki Ensel took out a renter's insurance policy with a benefit of $31,000. She then sent proof of this insurance policy to Earl's cell phone. With the aim of claiming insurance money and starting over together, Nikki and Earl went to work. In the early hours of December 31st, one or both of them shot Chad and planted the propane tank, alcohol, and shotgun around him, staging the scene to appear as a suicide. They also started several fires inside the home, in the hopes that enough fire damage would be done to cover up crucial evidence for anyone looking too closely. We can only speculate that the delay between Chad's death on December 31st and Nikki's 911 call on January 2nd was a result of the cold weather in North Dakota, which continually snuffed out the fires Nikki and Earl were trying to ignite. Presumably, Nikki only phoned 911 once she felt the crime scene was suitably tampered with. Only 2 days after placing her 911 call, Nikki had already reached out to her insurance company, beginning the process of claiming for fire damages on the house.
So, my name is Bobby McMillian. I'm calling with Homeside Insurance. This is regarding the claim that was reported. I'm the adjuster assigned. Just wanted to touch base with you to look more information.
Yes, I was getting ready to call you to figure out what our next steps need to be. I've been working on my list.
Okay. Yeah.
I went to the house.
I'm sorry.
I went to the house yesterday, and the deputy took me out there.
Did you take any type of photos or anything like that?
I couldn't. I started crying, so they got me back out. Because my husband passed away in the fire.
She wouldn't get to claim any insurance compensation, however, as Nikki Sue Ensel was convicted of all the charges laid against her.
We find the defendant, Nikki Sue Melissa Ensel, guilty for all 3 charges.
She was found guilty by the jury of conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit arson, and conspiracy to tamper with physical evidence. Nikki faces life imprisonment with the possibility of parole. Earl, on the other hand, faces 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole. That's a long time without Nikki's cookies, which apparently are to die for, well actually, apparently to kill for. In this day, Nikki continues to claim that she was not the one to pull the trigger. Meanwhile, Earl asserts that Nikki shot Chad, and he only staged the fire to help cover Nikki's tracks. It seems the web of lies that Nikki and Earl spun for the police still has them both trapped in its grasp. If you thought this was a fascinating glimpse into the mind of a lying, manipulative killer, you won't believe what took place in the interrogation of Stephen McDaniel. A cold-blooded killer who, just like Nikki and Earl, thought he had planned the perfect murder.
Why are you lying, Stephen? Who did it?
I don't know.
Yes, you do, Stephen.